There are powers hidden deep inside the human mind forces so rare that most people will never touch them. Yet they decide who will endure the greatest suffering and who will collapse in despair. What are these secret forces, and why do only a few discover them when life reaches its darkest edge? The answer was revealed not in comfort, but in the shadow of death itself, in the Nazi concentration camps, where everything human was stripped away. In those places of unimaginable cruelty, a psychiatrist observed what seemed impossible. Surrounded by starvation, cold, and humiliation, some prisoners wasted away quickly, while others, under the same torment, managed to keep going. What could explain this difference? It was not the body, for the strongest often perished. It was not age, nor education, nor experience. The secret lay somewhere far deeper, in the psyche itself hidden strengths that Carl Jung described as the mysterious architecture of the soul. This psychiatrist saw that no matter how cruel the guards, no matter how harsh the conditions, there were inner resources that could not be stolen. They were not physical objects, but attitudes, meanings, and visions held in the heart. When a prisoner carried these inner forces, survival became possible even when death pressed close. Without them, even the strongest frame weakened and gave way. Picture it. You are stripped of your name, your family, your freedom. You own nothing but rags and a number carved into a record. Every day brings hunger, cold, and fear. What could possibly give you a reason to rise again each morning? This is the mystery the psychiatrist uncovered. He identified 5 rare psychological mechanisms that determine survival. Each one gave prisoners something unbreakable, even in the most hopeless conditions. And here lies the question. What are these 5 forces, and could they be alive within you too? As we continue, each one will be revealed, and the 5th most extraordinary of all will only come at the end. Before we begin this journey into the hidden power of the mind, take a moment to subscribe to SYC Soul, like this video, and tap the notification bell so you don't miss what might become the most important discovery for your own life. The first hidden force revealed itself in a form that many overlook, the power of meaning. In the camps, those who still held on to a purpose beyond the suffering, whether it was the hope of seeing loved ones again, the dream of completing an unfinished task, or even the determination to bear suffering with dignity, stood stronger than those who believed there was nothing left to live for. The psychiatrist observed that prisoners who lost all sense of meaning deteriorated quickly. Their eyes became empty, their steps heavy, and soon their lives faded away. But the ones who clung to even a small thread of purpose, no matter how fragile, carried within them an invisible energy. Carl Jung spoke often of this idea, and that man's survival does not depend only on food or shelter, but on the symbolic life, the inner image that gives existence a reason. In those camps, that truth became painfully clear. Think of it this way. When everything outside you is destroyed, only what lives inside can hold you together. A person who told himself, "I must endure because my family needs me," or "I will survive to complete my life's work," had a foundation that no guard could shatter. Without this, suffering became unbearable, and life itself seemed empty. Again and again, the psychiatrist saw this difference. 2 prisoners might face the same labor, the same cold, the same hunger, yet one collapsed and the other continued. The only true distinction was whether their suffering was tied to meaning. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist himself, later wrote, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how." These words, echoing through psychology, align deeply with Jung's idea that the unconscious provides symbolic content that keeps us alive when reality seems meaningless. So the first secret is clear. Survival in the face of despair requires meaning. But how does one find meaning when surrounded by death? That question will return again and again as we move forward. And it leads us deeper into the next hidden force, something that is less about belief and more about the way the mind holds images of the future. But before we uncover that, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what gives your life meaning right now? What is that one reason you continue, even when the world seems heavy? Hold that thought, because it may be closer to the secrets we are about to reveal than you imagine. The second hidden force was revealed through something surprisingly fragile, yet incredibly powerful: the vision of the future. In the camps, those who could imagine themselves beyond the fences, who could see in their mind a day of freedom, a reunion, or even a simple act of normal life, these were the ones who endured. The moment a prisoner lost the ability to picture tomorrow, his strength would vanish. A psychiatrist noticed this countless times. Prisoners who believed their lives were already over, who could not form a mental image of survival, weakened almost instantly. It was as if the body followed the imagination. Carl Jung himself emphasized the role of inner images. The unconscious produces symbols that can either destroy us or sustain us. Here, those images determined the line between life and death. There were men who dreamed of walking home again, of embracing their loved ones, of writing books, or returning to their work. Though these were only thoughts, in the camp they became a lifeline. By contrast, those who said, "I have nothing left to expect from life," often collapsed within days. The psychiatrist wrote that the loss of hope was always followed by physical decline, even when no illness was present. Hope, or its absence, became visible in the body. Think for a moment about your own life. When you feel the future holds something for you, even a small thing, don't you feel stronger, more capable of facing today's problems? Now imagine being in a place where everything was taken from you, yet still finding strength in a mental picture of tomorrow. That fragile image was enough to keep a person alive when food, warmth, and comfort could not. This is why the second force, the vision of the future, is so vital. Without it, meaning collapses. Without it, the will to endure is lost. And yet, with it, even a starving body can carry on. The psychiatrist explained that many who survived later confessed it was their inner picture of tomorrow that saved them. But this leads us to another mystery. If the first force is meaning, and the second is the image of the future, what happens when a person brings both together? The answer is not only psychological, it is spiritual. And this is where the third hidden force reveals itself, carrying us even deeper into the strength of the human soul. The third hidden force seemed almost impossible in a place of despair: the ability to find beauty in suffering. Imagine this: after a day of inhuman labor, freezing winds cutting through the night, men reduced to shadows of themselves, something strange would happen. Suddenly, they would pause. Their eyes lifted to the horizon, a sunset, a snowflake, the soft glow of stars beyond the barbed wire. In those moments, silence fell. The men forgot hunger, forgot pain, forgot the cruelty of the guards. For a few breaths, they were simply human, moved by beauty. Our psychiatrist realized something extraordinary. Even in hell, the soul can still respond to wonder. And that response was more than comfort, it was survival. Those who still saw beauty, who still let themselves feel awe, showed remarkable resilience. Those who could not sank deeper into despair. Modern science now confirms what he observed. Studies show that moments of all lower stress hormones calm the body and strengthen immunity. Beauty does not erase pain, but it gives the soul oxygen while carrying it. There was once a violinist in the camp. His instrument had been stolen, yet every night, in the dim barrack, he closed his eyes and played an invisible violin. His fingers moved through the air, his face glowing with silent music. The other prisoners gathered around, listening to melodies that weren't really there. That invisible music nourished them more than the thin soup they were given. Later, the violinist would say, "For 3 years, Bach kept me alive, not the hope of liberation." This is the third force, beauty as resistance. To look at the sky and say, You cannot destroy this within me. It is the preservation of humanity in the face of dehumanization. Now pause for a second and think, during your hardest moment, what beauty touched you? A song? A smile? A ray of sunlight? Share that memory in the comments, because sometimes another person's beauty helps us notice our own. And before we continue, I want to know something from you. Tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching this from? Knowing the places these stories reach is itself a reminder of how connected we are, even across distance and suffering. But the story is not finished. The fourth hidden force goes beyond beauty. It is the power of a goal so strong that it bends suffering into meaning, and it may be the greatest weapon against despair ever discovered. The fourth hidden force was not merely a thought, but a goal that burned like fire inside the soul. It was more than meaning, more than a dream of tomorrow. It was the determination to fulfill a task that only you could carry. The psychiatrist observed this again and again. Those who believed life was asking something of them, something unfinished, something waiting possessed a strength that astonished others. One man whispered every night, "I must finish my book." Another said, "My child must not grow up without me." A third carried within him a promise, "I will not let this suffering be wasted." These goals transformed torment into a mission. Where others saw only senseless pain, these few saw an unspoken demand, life itself calling them to endure. Carl Jung described something similar in his work. He often said that the unconscious gives us tasks that appear as symbols, images, or duties that shape our destiny. To ignore them leads to despair, but to embrace them creates resilience. In the camps, this symbolic truth took flesh. Those who believed life still needed them, whether through work, art, family, or testimony, were the ones who survived longest. The psychiatrist noticed that when a man lost sight of his goal, he withered like a plant without water. His steps slowed, his eyes emptied, his will broke. But when he kept even one goal alive inside, his body seemed to obey that inner fire. It was as if his entire being rallied to complete the unfinished task. Now let me ask you something. What is your unfinished task? What is life still waiting for from you? Pause for a moment, because that very thought may be your hidden force, the very reason you rise each morning. Before we move to the next revelation, let me remind you, if you're finding meaning in these hidden truths of survival, don't let this journey end here. Subscribe to my channel, SYC Soul. Hit the notification bell and like this video so you never miss what's coming next. And if someone you know needs strength today, share this with them. Because the next hidden force is even stranger. It is not about the future, or beauty, or goals. It is about the inner attitude with which you face suffering itself. And this, more than anything, shows the secret depth of the human spirit. The fifth hidden force was perhaps the most mysterious of all, the attitude towards suffering itself. In the camp, no one could escape pain. Hunger, cold, humiliation, and loss were constants. But the psychiatrist noticed something remarkable. Though no one could change the outer conditions, each prisoner still carried one final freedom, the freedom to choose how to respond. Carl Jung spoke of this in his own way, teaching that when the outer world is unbearable, the inner world becomes the battlefield of destiny. And here, in the darkest of places, that truth revealed itself fully. Some prisoners collapsed beneath cruelty, surrendering all dignity. But others, though starved and beaten, stood straighter, spoke kindly, and bore themselves as if the suffering itself was their mission. One man whispered through broken lips, "They cannot take my response from me." Another, when mocked by guards, lifted his eyes and smiled faintly, as if to say, "Your power ends here." The psychiatrist realized this attitude did not erase suffering, but it transformed it. Pain remained, but it was no longer meaningless. He saw that those who chose an inner posture of courage, even if their bodies weakened, held a kind of victory that no external force could crush. Their very presence inspired others. Even in chains, they embodied freedom. This was the hidden force of attitude, the final human strength. Think of your own life. You cannot escape all pain. None of us can. But what if your suffering itself could become a testimony? A declaration that says, I am more than what happens to me. Imagine the power of carrying suffering not as a curse, but as a chosen task. This is what kept many alive when nothing else did. The psychiatrist later wrote that suffering ceases to be unbearable when it takes on meaning. And meaning is often born in the very moment we decide how to face the unbearable. Pause here and reflect. In your darkest moment, what attitude did you choose? Did it make you weaker or stronger? That answer may reveal more about you than anything else. But the hidden forces do not stop here. There is yet another power, subtle, quiet, but immense, that runs through every human being. It is not about suffering, nor about goals, but about something shared, something collective, something Jung himself described as the deep well of the soul that connects us all. The psychiatrist often reflected that even in the darkest surroundings, the human mind could reach for something higher. Though men were stripped of possessions, names, and even dignity, they were not stripped of their inner world. And in that inner world, memories and thoughts became stronger than chains. At times, he described how prisoners, shivering in the icy wind, still carried on conversations with loved ones in silence. Their lips did not move, but within, whole dialogues unfolded. They drew comfort from remembering a smile, a word once spoken, the light in someone's eyes. These recollections became a kind of inner refuge, a sanctuary no guard could enter. One night, lying on the rough planks of the barrack, the psychiatrist turned inward and spoke silently with his wife. He did not know if she was alive or dead, but the uncertainty no longer mattered. In his heart, her presence was real. Her image, her spirit, gave him strength to rise again the next day. In that moment, he realized something profound. Love is not bound to presence. It transcends time and place. Even in absence, it remains alive, unbroken, and capable of sustaining life. This discovery led him to a truth he later wrote with clarity. A man who has nothing left in the outer world may still experience fulfillment through love. The very act of turning one's inner gaze toward the beloved, of remembering and cherishing, becomes an answer to despair. It allows suffering to transform into a silent triumph of the spirit. Carl Jung had often written about the power of symbols and the inner images that guide life. Here, in the camp, that principle revealed itself in its most human form. The symbol of love, carried within the mind, gave meaning where all else was stripped away. Reflect on this for yourself. What memories give you strength? Whose face, whose voice, has carried you through times of struggle? That same force that sustained those prisoners lives within you too. And as the psychiatrist's reflections deepened, he realized that even suffering, when endured with love, pointed toward something greater than mere survival. It pointed to an inner freedom that no power on earth could destroy. The psychiatrist came to see that life in the camp stripped everything away until only the essential remained. A man could be robbed of possessions, of health, of freedom, but there was still something untouched. The way he chose to carry himself in the face of suffering. He observed that even when pain could not be avoided, even when death seemed certain, an individual still held one final freedom. That freedom was the choice of attitude. While many surrendered to despair, others found a way to rise inwardly above the torment. They bore their pain with quiet dignity, transforming it into a kind of inner victory. This realization became one of the most striking lessons. The guards controlled the outer conditions, but they could not dictate the prisoner's inner stance. Whether a man surrendered or resisted was not entirely about his body, but about his spirit. Those who clung to courage, to dignity, to faith, discovered a strange strength. Their suffering did not crush them. It revealed what could never be taken away. The psychiatrist later explained that man's deepest freedom lies in this, the ability to decide how he will respond to circumstances. Even in a concentration camp, even in the midst of humiliation, that choice remained. Some chose bitterness, some chose despair, but others chose to hold fast to meaning, to love, to courage. And in that choice, they discovered a profound form of freedom. Carl Jung had often spoken about the individuation of the soul, a journey where a person becomes whole by facing suffering rather than fleeing it. In the camp, this truth shone brightly. Those who embraced suffering as a challenge, who said to themselves, "This is my task, my test," often walked through it with an unbroken spirit. Think about your own life for a moment. None of us can escape pain entirely. But the psychiatrist's words remind us, what matters most is not whether we suffer, but how we face that suffering. It is here that life asks its deepest question, and here that each of us must answer. From these observations grew a conviction that human beings are capable of far more endurance than they imagine, so long as they protect the inner freedom that no outside power can erase. The psychiatrist realized, through endless nights and endless marshes, that suffering itself was not the true enemy. The real enemy was the absence of meaning. When a person could see purpose in their pain, they endured. But when suffering appeared senseless, it crushed the spirit. He saw this contrast every day. Two men would face the same hunger, the same labor, the same freezing winds. One collapsed while the other carried on. The difference was not in strength of body, but in strength of spirit. One asked, "Why must I suffer?" while the other asked, "For what purpose will I endure this suffering?" That small change in question often decided the outcome of life or death. Later, the psychiatrist wrote that man is not destroyed by suffering itself, but by suffering without meaning. When a man understood his pain as a task, a duty, or a testimony, he could withstand far more than he believed possible. Pain remained pain, yet it no longer reduced him to despair. It became an offering, a challenge, a path. Carl Jung's writings echo this understanding. Jung often explained that meaning is not given to us by comfort, but by struggle. Symbols arise from suffering, shaping the soul into something greater than it was before. In the camps, this truth was lived, not studied. It became the difference between fading away and surviving another day. The psychiatrist described how prisoners who found meaning, even if it was as simple as carrying their suffering with dignity, walked differently. Their posture was straighter, their eyes clearer, even when their bodies were frail. They held within them a hidden flame. That flame was not visible to the guards, but it was undeniable to those who walked beside them. And so, he came to see suffering in a new light. It was not only a weight, but also a teacher. It revealed to each man who he truly was. Stripped of everything else, suffering forced the spirit to answer, "Will you surrender, or will you stand?" This conviction grew stronger as days passed. Though outwardly surrounded by despair, inwardly, the psychiatrist saw proof of the human soul's ability to transcend even the most unthinkable conditions. In the end, the psychiatrist's journey through the camps revealed a truth that no one could ignore. Human beings are capable of withstanding almost anything if they can find meaning within it. Everything external may be stripped away, yet the spirit holds one freedom that cannot be taken: the freedom to choose one's attitude, to give suffering a purpose, to rise inwardly, even when crushed outwardly. He wrote that the meaning of life is not something given to us in comfort. It is something asked of us in hardship. Life, he said, constantly questions us, and we answer not with words, but with the way we live, the choices we make, the courage we show. In the camps, he learned that survival depended less on circumstance and more on this answer of the soul. Carl Jung often explained that the unconscious delivers tasks to us, symbols, images, duties, that demand completion. In the same way, the psychiatrist saw that life itself placed tasks in front of each man, even in the camps. Some men rose to meet them, and in doing so, kept their dignity. Others turned away, and in turning, lost themselves before they lost their lives. The ultimate lesson he carried was simple yet profound. Even when life seems nothing but suffering, it still holds meaning. That meaning is discovered not in comfort or pleasure, but in the way we bear the weight of hardship. Suffering is not senseless when it is accepted as a task, a responsibility, or an offering of courage. And so he concluded that there is no situation, no matter how dark, that lacks the possibility of meaning. Whether through love, through memory, through future goals, or through dignity and pain, every moment carries a hidden demand to live it with purpose. Now, as you reflect on these truths, ask yourself, what meaning is life asking of you today? What task is waiting for your courage, your endurance, your spirit? Before you go, I want to thank you for walking through this journey with me. If this message spoke to you, then please support this work. Subscribe to my channel, SYC Soul, like this video. Hit the notification bell so you never miss what comes next, and share it with someone who may need strength today. Because the meaning we carry is not only for ourselves, it may be the very light someone else is searching for.